Arthur Conan Doyle, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Chapter 12. Death on the Moor. Part 2. A low moan reached our ears. There it was again, to our left. On that side, a line of rocks ended in a steep cliff that looked down onto a slope covered with stones. On the rough face of the cliff lay a dark, uneven shape. As we ran toward it, the unclear shape became clear. It was a man lying face down on the ground, his head bent under him at a terrible angle, his shoulders rounded and his body twisted as if he had been turning in the air. The position was so strange that for a moment I could not understand that the moan had been his last breath. Now there was no sound from the dark figure over which we bent. Holmes placed his hand on him and lifted it again with a cry of horror. The light of the match he struck shone on his blood-covered fingers and on the dreadful pool that slowly spread from the crushed skull of the victim. And it shone on something else that made our hearts feel sick and weak. The body of Sir Henry Baskerville. There was no possibility that either of us could forget that special reddish tweed suit, the same one he had worn on the first morning when we saw him in Baker Street. We had one clear look at it, and then the match flickered and went out, just as hope had gone out of our hearts. Holmes groaned, and his face looked pale in the darkness. "The beast! The beast!" I cried, clenching my fists. "Oh, Holmes, I will never forgive myself for leaving him to his fate." "I am more to blame than you, Watson. In order to make my case complete, I have allowed my client to lose his life. It is the greatest failure of my career. But how could I know? How could I know that he would risk his life alone on the moor after all my warnings? That we should have heard his screams, my God, those screams, and still have been unable to save him? Where is that terrible hound that chased him to his death? It may be hiding among these rocks even now. And Stapleton, where is he? He must answer for this crime." "He will. I will make sure of that. Uncle and nephew have both been killed, the one frightened to death by the sight of a creature he believed to be supernatural, the other driven to his end while trying to escape from it. But now we must prove the link between the man and the beast. Apart from what we heard, we cannot even swear that the hound exists, since Sir Henry has clearly died from the fall. But, by heaven, clever as he is, the man will be in my power before another day has passed." We stood with heavy hearts on either side of the broken body, overwhelmed by this sudden and final disaster that seemed to bring all our long and tiring efforts to such a sad end. Then, as the moon rose, we climbed to the top of the rocks from which our poor friend had fallen, and from there we looked out across the dark moor, half covered in silver light and half in shadow. Far away, miles off in the direction of Grimpen, a single steady yellow light was shining. It could only come from the lonely house of the Stapletons. With a bitter curse, I shook my fist at it as I looked. Why should we not arrest him at once? Our case is not yet complete. The man is careful and extremely clever. It is not what we know that matters, but what we can prove. If we make one wrong move, the villain may still escape us. What can we do? There will be much to do tomorrow. Tonight we can only carry out the last duties for our poor friend. Together we went down the steep slope and approached the body, dark and clear against the silver stones. The pain shown in those twisted limbs struck me sharply and filled my eyes with tears. "We must get help, Holmes. We cannot carry him all the way to the hall. Good heavens, are you mad?" He had cried out and bent over the body. Now he was laughing, almost dancing, and shaking my hand. Was this my serious and controlled friend? Such hidden emotion was surprising. A beard! A beard! The man has a beard! A beard? It is not the baronet, it is... Why, it is my neighbor, the convict. In great excitement, we turned the body over, and the wet beard pointed up toward the cold, clear moon. There was no doubt about the strong forehead and the deep, wild eyes. It was the same face that had looked at me by candlelight from behind the rock, the face of Selden, the criminal. At once, everything became clear to me. I remembered that the baronet had told me he had given his old clothes to Barrymore. Barrymore had passed them on to help Selden escape. The boots, the shirt, the cap, they all belonged to Sir Henry. The tragedy was still terrible, but this man had at least deserved death according to the law. I explained everything to Holmes, my heart full of relief and joy. Then the clothes have caused the poor man's death, he said. It is clear that the hound was set on him by some article of Sir Henry's clothing. The boot that was stolen from the hotel, most likely. And so it followed this man. There is one strange point, however. How did Selden know, in the darkness, that the hound was following him? He heard it. To hear a hound on the moor would not frighten a hard man like this convict so much that he would risk capture by screaming wildly for help. From his cries, he must have run a long distance after he knew the animal was chasing him. How did he know? A greater mystery to me is why this hound, if our ideas are correct. I make no assumptions. Very well, then why this hound should be loose tonight? I suppose it does not usually run freely on the moor. Stapleton would not release it unless he believed that Sir Henry would be there. My problem is even more difficult than yours, for I believe we shall soon discover the answer to your question, while mine may remain a mystery forever. The question now is what we should do with this poor man's body. We cannot leave it here for the foxes and the birds. I suggest we place it in one of the huts until we can inform the police. Exactly. I am sure that you and I can carry it that far. Hello, Watson, what is this? It is the man himself, as bold and daring as ever. Do not say a word to show your suspicions, not a word, or my plans will be ruined. A man was walking toward us across the moor, and I saw the red glow of a cigar. The moonlight fell on him, and I recognized the neat figure and confident walk of the naturalist. He stopped when he saw us, and then continued forward. Why, Dr. Watson, is that you? You are the last person I expected to see on the moor at this hour. But dear me, what is this? Someone injured? Do not tell me it is our friend Sir Henry. He hurried past me and bent over the dead man. I heard him breathe in sharply, and the cigar dropped from his hand. Who is this? He asked in a trembling voice. It is Selden, the man who escaped from Princetown. Stapleton turned a pale face toward us, but with great effort he controlled his surprise and disappointment. He looked quickly from Holmes to me. Dear me, what a terrible event! How did he die? He seems to have broken his neck by falling over these rocks. My friend and I were walking on the moor when we heard a cry. I also heard a cry. That is why I came out. I was worried about Sir Henry. Why especially about Sir Henry? I could not stop myself from asking. Because I had invited him to visit me. When he did not arrive, I was surprised. And of course, I became concerned for his safety when I heard cries on the moor. By the way, his eyes moved quickly from my face to Holmes's. Did you hear anything else besides a cry? No, said Holmes. Did you? No. What do you mean then? Oh, you know the stories the local people tell about a ghostly hound and so on. They say it can be heard at night on the moor. I was wondering if there was any sign of such a sound tonight. We heard nothing of that kind, I said. And what is your explanation for this poor man's death? I believe that fear and the harsh conditions have disturbed his mind. He may have run wildly across the moor in a mad state and finally fallen here and broken his neck. "That seems the most reasonable explanation," said Stapleton, and he let out a breath which I understood as relief. "What is your opinion, Mr. Sherlock Holmes?" My friend greeted him politely. "You are quick to recognize me," he said. "We have expected you here since Dr. Watson arrived. You have come in time to witness a tragedy." "Yes, indeed. I have no doubt that my friend's explanation will account for the facts. I shall carry a sad memory back to London with me tomorrow." "Oh, you are returning tomorrow?" "That is my plan." "I hope your visit has helped to explain the strange events that have puzzled us." Holmes only shrugged his shoulders. "One cannot always achieve the success one hopes for. An investigator needs facts, not legends or rumors. It has not been a satisfying case." My friend spoke in a calm and natural way. Stapleton continued to look closely at him. Then he turned to me. "I would suggest taking this poor man to my house, but it would frighten my sister so much that I do not feel it would be right. I think that if we cover his face, he will be safe here until morning." And so it was decided. We refused Stapleton's invitation to his house, and Holmes and I walked toward Baskerville Hall, leaving the naturalist to return alone. When we looked back, we saw his figure moving slowly across the wide moor, and behind him the dark shape on the silver ground that showed where the man lay who had met such a terrible end. "At last we are face to face," said Holmes, as we walked together across the moor. "What courage the man has! How quickly he recovered when he discovered that the wrong person had fallen victim to his plan. I told you in London, Watson, and I tell you again now, that we have never had an enemy more worthy of our effort. I regret that he has seen you." "So did I at first, but there was no way to avoid it." "What effect do you think it will have on his plans, now that he knows you are here?" "It may make him more careful, or it may push him to act quickly and dangerously. Like many clever criminals, he may be too confident, and believe that he has completely deceived us. Why should we not arrest him immediately? My dear Watson, you were born to take action. Your instinct is always to do something bold. But imagine that we had him arrested tonight. What good would that do? We could prove nothing against him. That is the clever part of it. If he were using another person to act for him, we might find some evidence. But even if we brought this great dog into the open, it would not help us to put a rope around its master's neck. Surely we have a case. Not even a small one. Only suspicion and guesses. We would be laughed out of court if we presented such a story and such weak evidence. There is the death of Sir Charles. He was found dead without any mark on his body. You and I know that he died from fear, and we also know what frightened him. But how can we make 12 ordinary jurors understand that? What proof is there of a hound? Where are the marks of its teeth? Of course, we know that a hound does not bite a dead body, and that Sir Charles was already dead before the animal reached him. But we must prove all this, and we are not able to do so. Well then, what about tonight? We are not in a much better position tonight. Again, there is no direct link between the hound and the man's death. We never saw the hound. We heard it, but we cannot prove that it was chasing this man. There is also no clear motive. No, my dear friend, we must accept that at present we have no case, and that it is worth taking some risk in order to build one. And how do you plan to do that? I have strong hopes that Mrs. Laura Lyons may help us when she fully understands the situation. And I also have my own plan. Let tomorrow worry about itself, but I hope that before the day ends, I will finally have the advantage. I could get nothing more from him, and he walked in silence, deep in thought, until we reached the gates of Baskerville Hall. Are you coming inside? Yes, I see no reason to hide any longer. But one last word, Watson. Say nothing about the Hound to Sir Henry. Let him believe that Selden's death happened as Stapleton suggests. He will be calmer for the difficult experience he must face tomorrow, when he is, if I remember your report correctly, invited to dine with them. And I am invited as well. Then you must excuse yourself, and he must go alone. That can be arranged easily. And now, if we have missed dinner, I think we are both ready for supper.